Hi, I'm Neil Henderson here, founder of Apex Coaching and Ben Kanute's coach. We are here at the Colorado Springs Velodrome, which is under our awesome bubble here, being able to do some testing with Ben to get what his baseline aerodynamics are in the most objective way that we can while he's actually riding the bike here on the Velodrome. I use a protocol of several progressively increasing speeds, and then I use my computer here where I have all kinds of fun spreadsheets and formulas to be able to back calculate his coefficient of drag area, or CDA. When we know that CDA, that can really help us plan race strategy, pacing, the power required for a given course or even a climb, faster sections, whether there's headwinds, tailwinds. We can do a lot of modifications in pacing schedule based on knowing that CDA.
Cool, so we did a few different tests. We started off probably a couple centimeters higher and also about a centimeter or two, maybe even up to 3 wider. And as we went through the test, we brought it down, myself narrower, because usually as you come narrow, you come up. And we also brought this tri-rig water bottle system up higher, threw on the torpedo. So just kind of playing around with a bunch of different things on here, trying to dial in the front end, which kind of the main thing you try and dial in if you're coming to a place like this, because it's what hits the wind first. So between that and just where my head position is and everything is mainly what we were focusing on. Only a little bit of jerry-rigging today to make sure everything fits. So now it's just kind of the last few days here before leaving for Texas. We're just going to clean everything up. If we decide to do a different cockpit, because we have a different option, it'll just be measuring out everything to make sure that it transfers over almost exactly. And at that point, aerodynamics technically should be relatively close, I think, but it's mainly a comfort thing, and then applying what we learned here today to that to set it up.
Awesome, and it looks like also you tested some new helmets as well.
Yeah, so it's the same helmet. I would say I'm in between, mainly a medium and a large. They're the same exact helmet on the outside, and we confirmed that here today. I have a big head. Like, sometimes just how the helmet sits on your head could make a difference. We don't know until Neil goes through all the data, but just kind of looking at little things here and there like that. And I obviously would not recommend anybody just go to a bigger size helmet if it doesn't fit. There's a safety factor. For me, it still fits, so it's not dangerous, but it's just something that we're looking at, and probably what we would look at regardless of whatever helmet company I'm with. It just so happens that Rudy's helmet is really pretty fast.
Awesome, man. Let's talk about your overall happiness and the confidence with how today went.
Yeah, I think Velodrome is, I don't know if it's outside my comfort zone, but it's something that's new. So obviously, I got a bit better as I went on, but we did a bunch of different speeds, so everything was kind of ramping up. And yeah, I'm just super happy because I think we'll have some real hard data for where I'm at. Neil can kind of calculate out my CDA and everything and see the direction that we're moving from when we first started working together and what he was calculating there to kind of a couple rough estimates we did on the road to now in a velodrome. So as long as we continue to see that progress in the right way, I think that's just confidence going into Texas, because you're not going to gain 10, 20, 30 extra watts FTP wise or Ironman watts wise, but a really good session could save you 5, 10, 15 watts if you're doing the right things. We're doing double lactate tests today just to check in on the bike and the run. Last time I did lactate testing was end of February, so giving a true objective test for where exactly my fitness is. So I don't know, we'll hopefully see some big improvements. I feel like I'm fitter, but I guess we're gonna find out exactly. So we were just talking too, I think it's just nice to have this, to have something objective. Can't quite fake it, at least I don't think so. Maybe Neil can give me, he's shaking his head, no, you can't fake it. So in workouts, I do similar ones, so you can compare and gauge fitness based off of that, but this is just pretty much strictly, this is kind of where you're at, and you can create your race plans and stuff around it by knowing where your kind of top end of sustainability is.
You're excited, right?
Yeah, type 2 fun, right? What everybody likes to say, type 2 fun. 3. Type 3.
It never was fun.
It's fun. Yeah. You think football is fun? We're gonna have so much fun. It felt pretty strong.
Definitely. And again, from the cardiovascular side, we see a significant, 10 beat per minute drop for the same intensity now.
Yeah.
The lactate, where that jump is in a similar place, maybe again a little bit higher, not cosmically different, but clearly for the cardiovascular strain for that output, that would tell me you've got again significant improvement. Even if it's not going to say 340 watts, that you're still in that 315, 320 range at altitude right now.
Yeah. Okay, so it's like a 10-ish watt gain.
Yeah, which again, that's real. That's still over 3%.
Yeah.
And what did I say? 1/4% per week, quarter to a half.
Yeah.
1/4% per week for 12 weeks would be 3%.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You're already really freaking good to begin with. It's hard to be cosmic. You're not going to be oh, I went from whatever 310 to 400.
Yeah.
That's just not going to happen.
Right. Okay.
And again, what I'm talking about with that 310 and this 320 is sustained hour power here at this elevation.
Yeah. Okay.
Not what you could do for 20 minutes. I know for 20 minutes you could probably do 340.
Yeah.
Maybe even more.
Yeah.
Just in a straight up warm up and rip it out, but a one times 20 minute effort is sort of irrelevant for a 70.3 or an Ironman.
Yeah.
In terms of what you're doing.
And then again, the conversion from altitude to sea level.
Yep. is going to be on average 7%.
Okay.
So a 320 at 7%. is 21, 22 watts. So like 340, 345 is in that. Okay, now that's where that kind of, again, upper sustainable red line is.
Okay. I mean, we saw on Oceanside with that 310, I still was able to hold, what, like 320-ish?
Exactly.
Or something for there, so have some improvement on that.
So getting, you know, in that 330, 335 range is very, especially in this course too, where it is going to be more steady state and not as much variability. It's easier on you physiologically to do that too. Really, really good here. So we'll give you a couple extra minutes of easy cool down. You can get off the bike, go to the bathroom, walk around, whatever. If you need a little bar, gel, something like that before we start the run, and we'll start the run nice and easy.
Okay. The same thing then? All right.
Please do not get in my way. You cannot drive in my lane. Tires is burning the paint. You don't have nothing to say. This is how legends are made. I know I got what it takes. And I'm not popping the brakes. And I'm not popping the brakes. I'm too competitive. I like the narrative that I'm the best in the league. Who you comparing with? That isn't competitive. Top of the throne, it is me. How you moving slow when it's speed? I just been bringing the heat. I just been bringing the fire. Bringing the fire. They know that I'm bringing the. I got the fuel in my veins. Trust me, I'm making a name. We are not one and the same. I am on top of the game. I cut out the line on my brakes, and that's why the drive is insane. Heart of a champ, adrenaline rushes is numbing the pain. I'm too competitive. I like the narrative that I'm the best in the league. Who you comparing with? That isn't competitive. Top of the throne, it is me. How you moving slow when it's speed? I just been bringing the heat. I just been bringing the. Bringing the fire. Been bringing the fire. I just been bringing the fire. And they can't stop me.
Absolute massive improvements. Like bigger improvement on run than bike. Still improvement here. We see cardiovascular gains. We still see improvements. The gains on the run are even more profound. And that gives you weaponry to deal with.
And I think we found too that I'm faster outside than
Ben running on here, which this is still very, very fast. It's just that you're even faster for the same effort outside. All right. So we have finished Ben's tests. Both we can see different types of improvements. We're comparing a little bit of the same aspect here on the bike test, where this was the February test for Ben, where we have the lactate levels in red, heart rates in blue, and we didn't today gather the information that's the green and yellow here. That's actually the calories of carbohydrate per hour burned at the intensity in green, calories of fat burned at that same intensity in yellow. You can see Ben has an extraordinary capability of burning fat, actually, which is another thing we'll cover another time. We'll again test that a different day, not right before this race, but before his next Ironman. We'll do that just to dial in. This was, again, February to get our baseline, but we do have the same comparative heart rate and lactate values. And what we're seeing as a big picture is there's a significant change in Ben's heart rate compared to his heart rate at the similar level of effort. So as we get along kind of the right side here, as we get to the harder effort level, in February at a power output of 244 watts, his heart rate was 150 beats per minute, lactate level was a little under 2 millimoles. Whereas today at 253, his heart rate was 140. So the heart rate about 10 beats lower for actually, still 4 watts higher. Lactate was 1.7 today, 1.2 then, but small difference in lactate, but a considerable difference in that cardiovascular side of things. As we continue to go into the higher levels, his lactate level, we start to see a little bit of a lowering at the higher intensity. So comparing 323 was the final stage he was doing in February. His heart rate was 172 and his lactate was 4.7, where today at 329 watts, so 6 watts higher, his heart rate is 8 beats lower at 164 and the lactate was also right at that 4.7, and his perceived effort was also only just a 7 out of 10 today versus an 8 or 9 out of 10 back in February. So clearly some improvements on the bike there. When we shift over to the run, we see even bigger improvements overall. So this is again the same general information laid out here. This is the speed or pace across the top in minutes per kilometer, miles per hour in the middle. And the lactate level and heart rate for the first couple stages were a little bit higher today at the beginning, but he just did the bike, had maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then we started the run test, where last time in February, he did the bike test on day 1, came in the next day, and then did the run test. So he was already kind of preloaded with a little bit of fatigue from the bike, and still his baselines on the lactate got down under 1 millimole, and they stayed down and low even longer. Again, he's incredibly fit, even in February, even fitter now. The thing that was most impressive, like his last stage was 10.6 miles per hour, about a 331 kilometer last time. His heart rate was up to 172 at that point. Today, heart rate about 5 beats lower at 167. Lactate at only 2.7 versus 3.3, so a nice change there. And even more importantly, his perceived effort, that was a 6.5 out of 10 today. That was basically a 9 out of 10 effort last time. He was able, and we needed to go 2 more stages till we saw the significant jump in lactate. And by significant, I'm looking for a 1 millimole increase from one stage to the next, followed by greater than typically a 1.5 millimole, is kind of confirming where that break point is. And so that break point for Ben is happening up at 11 miles an hour now. Heart rate of 172, so the heart rate where that jump occurs is typically similar for athletes that are already well trained. You don't see an increase in your threshold heart rate, you see an increase in the pace where you achieve that point and where that break point is. So significant increase in pace. Still, that was only a 7 out of 10. We had to go all the way up to the 11.4 mile an hour stage today to get him to that same 9 out of 10 level of effort, and to get the lactate level to go over that break point up to 5.7 at the end. So really excellent improvements, cardiovascular, metabolic, from the lactate side of things. Ben's ready to race.
3, 2, 1.
You wanted to know how I felt? I just feel tired. That's the initial reaction after that. But overall, super happy with the tests. I knew that I was more fit than the last time, and that's just kind of logical because we hadn't had as much training, was up at altitude for a little while. I was probably, fatigued, sick, altitude, whatever it was, just wasn't myself during those other tests. But to come in 12 weeks later and have some good improvements on the bike and then real good improvements on the run, I think is pretty huge. And it just goes to back up all of the training that I've kind of seen, the progressions and how I felt you can feel when you're getting more fit and when you're ready to go. And that's what I'd been feeling maybe up until just a few days ago at the very end of the block, the last workout. And I think sometimes it's hard not to get hung up on like a quote unquote failed workout, because especially when you keep hitting everything, you think, okay, I can just hit it all. And then you just find your limit. So to kind of find that limit, know I'd done all of it, you tell yourself you're good, but to come in and do the tests and confirm it, I think that was the biggest thing. And now I just have a really clear picture too, physiologically, at altitude, can convert to sea level, where are kind of those key zones that I should hang out in for the race. And then taking into account wind direction, all of that, you can push in certain areas, and how best can I use my fitness to exploit the course to beat everybody else. And is it going to be enough to win? We'll find out on Sunday.
Awesome.
Mid-season break, obviously this is not exactly where I wanted to be. Had some highlights early on in the year, but frankly, I think it all boils down to not enough consistency over the winter. Seems like a very simple answer. I think ambition is what killed me in this year because, made a lot of big changes, moved, changed coaches, changed the way I train, and the whole family's just in a different spot. And stopped focusing on T100, focused on Pro Series. So we got all these changes going on, and I set ambitious goals to go after the Pro Series, the Ironman World Champs, and 70.3 World Champs. But to be able to do that, no race is just a throwaway race anymore. They're all competitive, and I don't want to say underestimated. I think you need that sort of belief in yourself to be a professional and say, I have these big goals. I'm going to go out and do them. Nothing's going to get in my way. But sometimes life does. And I basically missed, December, January, part of February, just in dealing with the move and everything. I had to be super flexible. I think just coming back, I've talked about it before. I just feel like I was overtrained the last year or so. So it was a shift from being overtrained to resting a whole bunch to then trying to build up with a new coach who's also learning how I function, how I work, and what workouts work for me. So it didn't leave a lot of time for error. And we hit something really well in Oceanside. And when you race, I feel like I'm pretty gritty. I feel like I've made a name for myself for, pushing myself, hurting myself in races and training. And sometimes when you race and you're prepared, you can race above that level and you can dig deep and you push further than you think your body can go. And that's what happened in Oceanside. But then I think that lack of preparation really caught up to me in Texas and Frankfurt specifically, where I was able to push myself to a higher level for a part of the race. And then my body kind of said no. And that's what's hard, I think, as a professional, because I want to keep pushing myself. And mentally, it almost feels like a bit of a failure because you're like, if I just would have tried harder, I could have gone. But when we take a look at all the training and what I've done, that consistency, I think, really handicaps you at the end of the day if you don't get it when you're racing an Ironman. Because, you're racing maybe beyond your level a little bit for 4 to 5 hours, and then you get off the bike. And if everything is sore and tight and just not going, it's not necessarily nutrition. It's not that my metabolic systems aren't up to par, because we've done lactate testing with Neil and saw where we started in February and progressed to a much higher level, on track with what you would expect by the couple weeks before Frankfurt. And we even continued to see some improvement. We did 2 different types of lactate testing, 4 weeks out and 2 weeks out. So even saw me trending higher going into Frankfurt. And I think it's just the fact that my legs don't have that consistency. I can go out and hammer a 6-hour ride. I could do a 2-hour run, but it's kind of at what cost? It's almost the opposite of what I was dealing with the past couple years, where I'm underdone right now. So I can go out and I can ride 6 hours in the mountains and be done. It might take a little bit more out of me than if I had that consistency and really built up that base. Same way as last year, if my tank is mostly empty and I'm going out there doing a 6-hour ride, I'm keeping the needle on more closer to E. So I feel like I've rested well at a lot of these races and gone in, and even with the Aero testing we've done, I'm using less watts than I have in past years, whether it's riding in the group, riding on my own, whatever, to get a higher achieved speed. So the swim, we've seen it's on track with all my other Ironmans I've done. The bike is faster with less watts, so I know that there's more strength to be found there. There's a lot of, extra training we can do on that. And the run just hasn't been able to show because it's a triathlon. If you swim hard, you bike hard, and you're not fully prepared, you're not going to run fast. And that's been the biggest thing that I felt a disconnect between Texas, Eagleman, and Frankfurt. And all of those are kind of similar in why I didn't perform, but they're all their own unique experiences. But basically, the simple thing is you got to work hard at this sport and consistently if you want to do it. And just to kind of finally wrap it up, I guess on social media, you always see the guys who come back. You watch the Sam Laidlow, you watch Trevor Foley, some of these guys who have had injuries or dealt with health stuff and go through this maybe lack of consistency and then train really hard and come back. I think that's hard as a professional or even as an age grouper sometimes to watch these people do that because, I'm like, why couldn't I push harder and do it? But I think the main reminder is just everybody's in their own story. And I think when I look at it, I had, 5 races to start the year, and you start taking away a week and a half per race for taper into it, rest out of it. And that's anywhere from 3 to 4.5 or more weeks of not stringing together training. So hindsight's 2020. Maybe should have started off early, like later in the year, but you don't know unless you try. And there's always that percentage that we could get myself pretty darn fit and get into it. But I seem to kind of be an all or nothing type of guy a lot of ways, where I'm either firing on a really high level and up at the front of the race, or my body just, I do it for a period of time and then, there's kind of an explosion. So we're at the pivot point in the season. There's no Nice on the table. We've got another schedule kind of worked out, but the main goal is going to be 70.3 Worlds, and pretty pumped to go back to Ironman Arizona. I didn't think I'd be saying that, but it's the last one. It's right after 70.3 Worlds, and I think that gives me more than enough time to have some prep overall, and mainly some 70.3 prep, because Worlds is the main goal, and then Arizona is icing on the cake. Get to go back to where we lived for a while, see some old friends, race in some old training grounds and that sort of thing. So those are off in November, and it just really, the first half of the year felt so rushed. So now it's nice to take a step back, focus on training and execution, and just get all the details right so that when I step on the start line again, I'm ready to go.